Let us walk you through our experience of making soda bread with a recipe from 18th century while telling you some cool facts about it in the process. But first, before we start baking, we need to prepare the ingredients that we need to make this bread, which are 250 gram of AP flour, 250 gram of wholemeal flour, 25 gram of baking soda, 5 gram of salt, 25 gram of unsalted butter, and 445 milliliters of buttermilk. Once we have our ingredients done, the first step is to mix the dry ingredients. Pour AP flour and the wholemeal flour into a bowl. We should use a sieve to prevent the flour from lumping.
Now, while we wait for our bakers to sift and weigh the flour, let us tell you a little bit of soda bread history. In 18th century America, settlers found out that bicarbonate soda, now more well known as baking soda, can be used to instantly rise dough, transforming slow bread making. This quick and easy bread instantly became popular, and eventually, the news spread over to Britain. Until then, the Irish and Scottish struggled with making fluffy bread due to their low-gluten grains such as oat and barley. These types of grains cannot be used to make these kinds of bread. The new soda bread, however, suited their low-gluten flour very well, and many households quickly began making them. Now back to baking. Next, we need to add salt and of course, the star of the show, the baking soda.
The next step is to add unsalted butter into the mix. Then, we need to rub it into the dry ingredients until it forms a breadcrumb-like texture. Then, we need to slowly pour buttermilk into the dry ingredients while gently kneading it in with our hands. And while the bakers knead away at the dough, let us come back to history. Soda bread was considered a cheap and easy bread because it only needed 4 main ingredients: flour, salt, a type of acid, and baking soda. So, it was commonly consumed by the lower classes in Ireland. This bread provided a relatively cheap and nutritious source of sustenance, which was enjoyed by the working class communities. And would you look at that? The dough is now fully incorporated and ready to be shaped into a round loaf and scored across the top. These were the shapes that we decided on.
The final step is to place the dough on a baking tray and bake them in the oven for 30 to 35 minutes on 200 degrees Celsius. While waiting for the bread to cook, don't forget to clean up. After 30 minutes, we can check whether or not the bread is done by sticking a toothpick in it and seeing if any wet dough still sticks. Looks like ours is done. Now time to cut into the bread. As you can see, because the lack of yeast, it is a dense and airless bread that is perfect for eating with soup or jams.
Here we have our bakers enjoying the fruits of their hard work. Looks like they like it! And not only our bakers, people in the 1800s also enjoyed soda bread in various ways. One of the simplest ways was to simply slice it and spread butter on top. A lot of people also ate it alongside soups, stews, and meats. While traditional soda bread isn't sweet, people also added sugar, dried fruit, or seeds to make a sweet variation. A lot of people acquired soda bread in the 1800s by simply baking it at home. The ingredients for soda bread were relatively simple and affordable. So many families often bake bread at home, either in ovens or on griddles over an open fire.
In large towns, there were local bakeries where people could buy bread, including soda bread. Bakeries played a significant role in providing a convenient source of freshly baked bread for those who didn't or couldn't bake it at home. Aside from bakeries, marketplaces and street vendors were also in both urban and rural settings. People who didn't or couldn't bake at home could also buy soda bread from these vendors.
In rural communities, barter and trade were common practices. People might exchange goods or services for bread, including soda bread. This was especially common in areas where self-sufficiency and community cooperation were important. Overall, we really like the whole process of following and eating this recipe. We can see why so many households in the 18th century enjoy making this bread, because it is delicious and really easy to make. We can see ourselves making it again in the future.